You're listening to the 49 Carats Podcast, a 49ers Goldmine production with Stephanie Sanchez.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another edition of the 49 Carats Podcast. I'm your host, Steph. It is Friday, October 18th. The 49ers have been preparing to face their biggest nemesis, the Kansas City Chiefs, in Week 7 of the regular season. I got Kyle Posey of Niners Nation with me, as always, on a Friday to preview some favorable and not so favorable matchups for the 49ers in this one. But hey, 49ers are looking to stack some wins here before that bye week. KP, how we feeling about it?
Yeah, I mean, got the big win last week, right? And what I want to ask you about it, I just noticed in the intro that it says 49ers Goldmine. OG.
Right, yeah, I need to update that, but OG, you remember that?
I love that. No, everything's good. The vibes are high. I'm sure we're going to talk about the real reason the vibes are high. Probably exactly where they want to be, like all things considered.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, we are going to get right into it. And joining us for that is Desi. Desi, first of all, thank you. I'm so thankful that you're back here and you're okay, because as we know, the hurricane out in Florida wreaked havoc, and I'm glad that you're okay. Your house is okay. So happy to have you back. How are you?
Yeah, I appreciate that. It has been it's been a crazy couple of weeks here. We've had 2 hurricanes in 13 days, and they were devastating, both of them. And it's something I've never experienced in my life. I've lived in Florida for over 20 years, and, we have hurricanes, but we've never had a direct hit. We've never had this much damage, and it's pretty devastating. So if you guys are in a position to help in any way, whether it's just prayers or contributing to nonprofits that are helping our community here in Florida, we would greatly appreciate it. Our team is playing here in Tampa Bay against the Bucs coming up in just a few weeks. So you may, if you're coming here to see the game, you might still see a lot of destruction and devastation here to the area. So thank you for your thoughts, though. A lot of the Niners Empire just came out and showed support. And Steph, especially you texted me, you reached out on social media and through text. And I just appreciate you guys. It's been a rough couple of weeks, but now let's talk football. Let's get my mind off of it and let's chat football.
Yeah, so we've got for the 49ers, their game status. Juwan Jennings is going to be out for this game. That one came up in the week with a hip injury. Jake Moody, he's still going to be out. Their second kicker, Matthew Wright, is going to be out for this one, dealing with shoulder and back injuries. He's actually going to go on IR, so the 49ers going to have a third kicker come on board this week, Anders Carlson. But we got a couple of questionables. Kevin Givens with groin injury, and cornerback Darrell Luter Jr. also questionable. But I think the big ones that we want to discuss, Desi, are the ones that are not on this list. We got Ricky Pearsall, who is set to make his debut. Kyle Shanahan confirmed shortly before we went live here. That is huge news for a variety of different reasons. Desi, I'm not so much concerned about him from the injury standpoint. I'm just excited for him. And I mean, this is big, not just for, the morale of the team, but him, because he's been itching to get back out there for a while. Kind of got derailed a bit, but now he's ready. The team is buzzing, and I'm so excited to see him out there.
Well, former Florida Gator, so we're really excited to watch him here from the Tampa Bay and Florida area, see him showcase what he can do. It's a big opportunity for him with Juwan Jennings not being available for this game. He's got an opportunity, and I'd love to see him take it full advantage. I believe there's some talks of him also doing some punt returning as well. So there might be some opportunities in more than one side of the field. So let's go. I'm here for it.
Now, from the conditioning standpoint, he didn't spend a lot of time in training camp, as we know, because he was dealing with the shoulder injury at that time. And then now he got activated to practice, I believe Monday, right? So it's been, or last Monday maybe. But all that to say, he hasn't been practicing with the team that much time. So from a conditioning standpoint, do you have any concerns there? Or maybe like I would guess the 49ers try to ease him in.
So this was always a tough one because the 49ers are just a great organization that keeps a lot of things under wraps. I'm not sure that we ever really found out which shoulder was ailing him. And so was it the same side that he was shot? I'm not quite sure. Right. So it's going to be a tough call. I think if he's clear to play, Kyle Shanahan has said before that if they're clear to play, he's putting them in, and it is what it is. I'm still would have some concerns about, we don't really know exactly what the specific injury was with this gunshot wound. I know there wasn't vital organs involved. I know there wasn't, complications in that regard, but I promise you, it's got to be more than just a wound. Like, for him to have been out this long, it's more than a wound. So I still have some concerns. Was there a little bit of a collapsed lung? You can have different degrees. So when you hear a collapsed lung, it doesn't mean the whole lung deflated. You can have partial. So I just wonder if there was a partial, and that was why they waited so long to put him back in. So from a perspective of endurance, is that I'm sure the lung is probably well healed. I don't have any concerns in that regard if that is part of his injury that happened that just didn't get disclosed. But the trainers and the therapists and all of that, they tend to keep them conditioned the best way possible. And all of his injuries were upper extremity. So I think he's probably going to be good to go. Now, is it football endurance? We've seen Trent Williams struggle a little bit coming back. We've seen Ayuk a little bit struggle come back. So you're going to have to take it with a grain of salt, but I think he is ready to go, and he is going to come out full force.
I believe it was the left shoulder, by the way. And for what it's worth, on the injury report, he's not listed as the shoulder. It's just a chest injury on the injury report. So there are no designations. It's kind of crazy that there's a report just as of last week. He just was able to get that full range of motion in his shoulder. So think about it, like catching passes, you have to go here, like all different directions. So for him the journey that he's been on over the past month and a half is just insane to think about.
Right. And so that's the other part of it, is I'm more concerned about the upper extremity than I am more of the endurance side of him. So that is wild that he had limited range of motion up until so I wouldn't have patience, but it's exciting to get a player out there, a rookie, our first round rookie, get him out there, get him into the lineup and see what he can do.
Steph talked about team morale. I don't think there's any bigger shot in the arm that you can give your team than putting a player who think about what he's been through, think about like how you can easily rally around that person, think about when he's introduced. If they do find a way to introduce him, that crowd is going to be insane. So just the locker room, the warm-ups, everything about hearing the name Ricky Pearsall. When he catches his first pass, like I wouldn't be surprised. Like if I were Kyle Shanahan, I'd throw him a screen on the very first play. Like I'd make sure that he gets involved right away, and just to get that kind of buzz in the stadium and to like just kind of ride that wave of, hey, like this is our guy. We're going to rally around him. I think it could go a long way for the team.
And we got to remember too, Juwan Jennings is going to be out, so more opportunity.
He has to play. Right.
Well, I'll say, just you saying that alone, I got chills just hearing you say it. Imagine what it's going to feel like in the stadium, over
thousands of people.
And it's going to be amazing.
Yeah, that's definitely going to be exciting. I'm sure the 49ers have handled this situation like from all angles so well. So I'm sure they're going to do something special for his walkout. But as you mentioned, Desi, Kyle, when he says guys are cleared, like he means it, right? So Jordan Mason, another guy that was cleared despite being limited throughout the week, and not just limited, but he was wearing a no contact jersey all this week, including today, Friday. And so he is cleared. Going into this game, I had some concern, even though he is cleared, just because it is that shoulder injury. You're a physical runner like Jordan Mason is. You're leading with that shoulder quite a bit. So should we be concerned at all about this shoulder sprain maybe getting re-aggravated?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Magnolia, the defense is going to be, aggressive. They're tacklers. They're going to get at us every chance that they can. And, with these players, Ricky Pearsall as well, right? Like we know that his shoulder injury is not something that's brand new. It was a little bit something coming in even as he was being recruited. So these are all injuries that, you know, they're going to smell blood in the water and they're going to be all over it. Not to say that they're intentionally going to go after, but they probably will, right? That's just football. So I think there's a definite need to be concerned, but any given Sunday, right? It is what it is. They've cleared him. He's going to be out there. It'll be something we'll keep an eye on.
Yeah, for sure. So hopefully nothing happens with Jordan Mason this Sunday, and he is good to go. But Desi, thank you so much for joining us to talk about these topics. Again, glad to have you back. Again, everyone, if you could, you know, donate to any of those efforts for the hurricane relief in Florida and the surrounding areas, make sure you guys do that. But thank you, Desi, so much for joining. And go Niners, right?
Go Niners, beat Chiefs.
Stay safe.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. So, KP, let's take a quick look at the Chiefs injury report for this game. It's pretty short. We got Mike Dana, who's going to be out. That's the big one, right? Defensive lineman for them. He's a great player. The other player, Juju Smith-Schuster, with a hamstring injury, he's questionable. So I'm thinking he's going to be available for this game. And obviously what you don't see here are the guys that are on IR, right? That have kind of impacted the Chiefs this season. Rashee Rice and also Isaiah Pacheco. Like those are pretty big losses for them on the offensive side of the ball. So having, you know, even Smith-Schuster is pretty big for them given how depleted they are at the wide receiver position right now.
Yeah, so Juju popped up on the injury report with a hamstring. That was on Wednesday. Andy Reid said that he's going to be good to go. Like he expects him to play, but will he be 100%? Unlikely. Dana is a big one. If you remember in the Super Bowl, he was actually the only player that I've seen in 2023 who threw Trent Williams out of the way on a run play. Like I've never seen anybody do that. He's been very good this year. He plays around 40 snaps a game. He's had pressure in every game, usually a run stop. He's actually had multiple run stops in every game. Against the Bengals in week 2, he had 4 run stops. So he's a good player, and he's a big reason why they're so good against the run. So, I mean, that might open up some rushing lanes for Jordan Mason. But, yeah, short injury list, as you might expect. The Chiefs are probably going to – they probably knew that he was going to be out coming off a bye week, but still, like, when your defensive line takes an injury hit like that, as we know, it's really tough to replace.
Yeah, for sure. So we'll definitely talk about some of these matchups and how that could favor the 49ers. I want to start, as always, with the unfavorable matchups for this team. I like to end things on a good note, so let's start with the bad stuff first. The first thing for me, 49ers special teams is my maybe biggest concern for this team this season, and certainly in this game. When you think about playing the Chiefs, I think about having such a small margin of error, and special teams, as we've seen this season, has given opponents that boost to get back into the game against the 49ers, despite, you know, their best efforts on offense and defense, right? And the Chiefs rank 3rd in net yards per punt. The 49ers rank 32nd, dead last, almost a full 10-yard difference there. And the 49ers special teams is allowing the most net yards per punt. So yeah, they got to be concerned about this one. And we also talked about the fact that 49ers, both kickers, aren't going to be available for this one. They signed Anders Carlson earlier this week. So he is said to be the 49ers' 3rd kicker in as many weeks. Matthew Wright did fine, right? Like he did well. Can they get lucky twice with a kicker they're signing off the street? So that's my concern, that this is going to rear its ugly head again and potentially hurt the 49ers in this game.
Yeah, the 49ers are, like, according to DVOA, which adjusts for schedule and opponent, they are 31st in special teams. And I mean, that's not really a surprise if you've been watching them. They find ways to blow these games on special teams. I do wonder if how much of an impact, like potential impact, Ricky Pearsall could have as a punt returner, because Cowling hasn't been able to get going. So, I mean, it's only one direction to go for Pearsall. Even if he has like one 11-yard, one double-digit return, like that'll be a positive. You're basically adding a first down. Carlson, as far as kicking-wise goes, the one issue that Wright did have was kicking the ball out of the end zone. That has not been a strength for Carlson either. Ideally, kick out of the end zone, get the ball at the 30. You don't have to worry about your kicker making a tackle. If that were the case, Jake Moody would still be here. Wouldn't have to worry about going through or cycling through a pair of kickers. Same with Mitch Wisnowski. Get first downs, right? Don't worry about punting. Convert in the red zone so you don't have to worry about Carlson kicking field goals. So obviously there are ways to avoid these, but I mean, at some point you're going to have to kick the ball. So yeah, they have really struggled, I think, as far as kick coverage goes. And that's just a result of being injured, right? So like there was a practice squad safety last week who missed the tackle. And there's a reason they signed Adrian Amos to the practice squad, probably to have veterans on those kick coverage teams. Honestly, I saw some people floating around the idea of Jamal Adams. I would just have him cover kicks, if anything, right? So you don't have to worry about some of the issues that they've had on special teams. But it's definitely been a problem because their offense and defense have performed very well, but special teams is weighing this team down, no doubt.
Yeah, it definitely is. So you definitely don't want it to be the reason that you lose against this team, especially if everything else is kind of under wraps. So hopefully the 49ers have a plan to make their special teams a little bit better, but I'm not feeling so confident. But let's take a quick look at the Chiefs defense. They have a very strong unit. As we know, Kyle Shanahan called them the best defense that they faced last year, and that's true again this year as well. And that's with the 49ers having already faced the Vikings, that also a really good defense over there. So I'll just say, like Mike Dana, like we mentioned, he's going to be out in this game, so there's going to be a backup there. But you still have Chris Jones, you still have George Karlaftis, so a lot of contributors on that defensive line that can wreck a game. Like Chris Jones is a game wrecker, and we'll definitely talk more about him in a bit. See where I'm going with that in these unfavorable matchups. But yeah, this is a really good defense. They don't have Ladarius Sneed anymore, but they still have Trent McDuffie. They added Jalen Watson. So just from an overall standpoint, what do you think about this Chiefs defense?
I think their front seven is like one of the only teams in the NFL that can match the physicality of the 49ers offense. And that kind of showed its way in the Super Bowl. Of course, like, again, Dana being out should take a toll on them, but like how much, right? How much will the 49ers be able to offset that? As far as stopping the run, they've been very good this season, like very, very, very good. They're top 10 in the EPA per rush success rate, fewest 10 plus rushing yards allowed, yards per carry. Like just go down the list. Yards before contact, they're very good at stopping the run. And that's how they can get you into these third and long situations, and Spags can dial up blitzes, and that's how you end up making turnovers and sacks and having mistakes. So that's what you want to avoid. And that's why I think the 49ers should lean into Brock Purdy and have these quick passes, not, run passes, which is what Shanahan was doing a little bit too much last week, I would say.
Yeah, and you read my mind, because this is definitely my next not so favorable matchup for the 49ers, right? The Chiefs run defense, it is very good. They're limiting opponents to just 88.4 rushing yards a game. That's fifth best in the NFL. 3.7 rush yards per attempt. That's fourth in the NFL. And this is an excerpt from your preview of this game that's on Niners Nation, right? You say Kansas City ranks in the top 10 in EPA per rush, success rate, yards per carry, 10 plus yard carries allowed, and yards before contact allowed. So yeah, Dana's going to be out, but we still expect this Chiefs run defense to be very strong. And like we said, I mean, Jordan Mason, he's been awesome, right? But he's coming off an injury as well. He practiced it in limited fashion throughout the week. So 49ers going to still try to continue to lean on him, but I'm not sure if I'm expecting like some crazy performance from Jordan Mason in this game, because I think it's going to be tough sledding for them.
Yeah, and the Chiefs are battle tested too, right? They've played some very good rushing teams. They played Lamar and Derrick Henry in week 1. They played Bijan Robinson. They played Dobbins. They played Kamara from the Saints. So they've gone against some very good rushing teams, and they've stopped them all. I think some of those numbers would be better had it not been for playing Baltimore, obviously, in week 1, where they had that to go against Lamar. So it's definitely a battle. It will be tough for the 49ers.
Yeah, here's another stat. Running backs have gained 10-plus yards, the second lowest rate against the Chiefs defense, 4.7%. So, yeah, not expecting a lot of rushing lanes for Jordan Mason, but, the good thing is he's good with contact, so we'll see how that goes in this game. But it's not so favorable for me. Let's get into the next one. This is where I want to talk about Chris Jones because, like I said, he's a game wrecker. I think like Kyle Shanahan kind of equated him to that same impact that Aaron Donald has, right? Like you have to account for him on every single play. He ranks second in pass rush win rate among all defensive tackles, first in double team rate. So think about that. Despite being first in double teams, he's second in pass rush win rate. So it doesn't even matter if you account for him. He's still wreaking havoc. He's also seventh in pressures, seventh in pass rush grade on PFF. And he has the fifth quickest get off, just under a second, according to Next Gen Stats. So this just highlights the impact of Chris Jones and what he can do. And look, he's going to be lining up, I think, at different points across just about everyone probably on that offensive line with stunts. And, sometimes he lines up outside. And I think a majority of the time he'll probably be going up against Dominic Pooney, right? And I think we know Pooney is a major upgrade at right guard than the 49ers have had in the past, though I'm nervous for him, right? Like I think even Chris Forrester said like he's going to have his hands full. So how much do you think Pooney could potentially be the difference in this game for the 49ers going up against Jones?
I actually think it's going to be more Colton McKivitz, and that might go against, traditional thinking. But according to Next Gen Stats, Chris Jones is lined up 50% of the time as an edge rusher this year on obvious passing down. So they're not going to put him against Trent Williams. They're not just going to waste him there. So why not put him against the quote unquote weak link of the 49ers? And that hasn't been Pooney. Pooney's done a great job this season, but if there's one weak link in pass protection this season consistently, it's been the right tackle. So I would expect Spags to probably blitz the other side, right, and make sure that you get a one-on-one with McKivitz and Jones. So that's the guy that I'd be worried about. He's like dominant, right? Like he's very, very good. He's had at least 4 pressures in every game but one this season. Like,
that's crazy.
He's one of the best players in the NFL. There's no doubt about it. Mason is going to be important when it comes to pass protection, right? You have to have your eyes on 95, make literally anybody else beat you. Like it can't be a game where 95 is all over 13. Like that cannot be a thing this week. So, and that's where, again, it comes down to devising the proper game plan. And I think that's where like these quick passes, and I'm sure we'll get into that, where you don't have to worry about Chris Jones living in the backfield if you're getting the ball out quickly.
Yeah, and we know that, Spags and this Chiefs defense, they blitz in, really key times in a game on a drive, right? So I'm expecting that. I think another test for, the 49ers offensive line, in particular, Jake Brendel, is how he sets the protections, right? Because we've seen some of those blips, right? Last week against the Cardinals, no less, or 2 weeks ago against the Cardinals. So that's going to be another test for them. Hopefully they got that all dialed in, but I would expect that Spags, sees and tests that out probably early in this game to see if they do have that dialed in for sure, and try to get some of those favorable matchups where they can get someone, free coming to Brock Purdy.
Yeah, slide his way, right? And that'll solve a lot of issues. Or if you see 95, slide towards his way, figure out, hey, Mason, maybe just key him and go from there.
All right, well, let's look at the Chiefs offense. I mean, we got the mainstays of Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, but there's a number of new faces. Kareem Hunt had been with the team before, but he is back because, as we mentioned, Isaiah Pacheco is on IR. So Hunt's been with them for 2 games, and he's been all right. Like we'll talk about him in a bit, but they definitely have a pretty strong offensive line aside from left tackle, where Wanya Morris has been there. Before that, they had Kingsley Suamataia, so he was struggling, so they've pulled him. Wanya Morris, not that much better, but that could be something that the 49ers look to line up Nick Bosa quite a bit for Patrick Mahomes' blind side. But we know Patrick Mahomes can move around in the pocket, and he's most dangerous probably when he moves out of the pocket. Like that's when I'd be scared. And he's like off schedule and plays break down. And, while they don't have the same level of wide receivers that they've had in the past, Xavier Worthy does scare me a little bit just because he is someone, him and Patrick Mahomes could probably take advantage of a coverage bust just as easily as anyone in the NFL. So I'd be worried about that. Travis Kelce and Mahomes have that, crazy chemistry that they just kind of always know where to find each other. And so, yeah, this is a really good Chiefs offense, as we know. The 49ers have done a fine job, I think, of limiting them. Like the Super Bowl, I thought they limited them to an extent. They're not quite as they're not like a firepower type of offense like they used to be. But as we know, Patrick Mahomes still as dangerous as any quarterback in the league.
I would argue that this is the worst Chiefs offense that the 49ers have faced under Kyle Shanahan, like since they've been having these head-to-head Super Bowl runs. Kareem Hunt is not Isaiah Pacheco at this point. Like he's has a lot of high volume, but against the Saints are not a good rushing defense. They're actually one of the bottom 5 rushing teams in the league. And he was only able to average 3.8 yards per carry. Against the Chargers, he had 14 carries for 69 yards. Justin Watson was a former tight end. Like they don't have answers at wide receiver. And then you mentioned Wanya Morris. Like that's the one. Like that's the guy you want to circle if you're Nick Bosa. Like this is the guy that I have to beat. Bosa handled the Patriots left tackle, and he handled the right tackle last week against the Seahawks. And I think it's going to be more of the same this week with Wanya Morris. According to Sports Info Solutions, Morris has the 6th highest blown block rate amongst all offensive linemen. So not just like left tackles, but it's every lineman in the NFL. Morris has just struggled, and they've cycled through multiple left tackles because they haven't been able to find an answer. And I'm not sure that Morris is he's young, and they acknowledge that too. But Floyd and Bosa have got to win against Morris and Taylor. They are very strong up the middle. Thuney's great, Humphrey's great. Trey Smith's one of the best guards in the NFL, which is why if I'm Nick Sorensen, I'm bringing pressure from the edge. I'm taking advantage of these tackles, and maybe that's where the blitz comes, and maybe you're able to get one-on-one, or they make a mistake, and you get a fruit rusher against Mahomes. But the lack of explosive weapons, and I say that as I'm staring at a guy who ran a 4.2, but they don't have many weapons that are consistently getting open. Like Worthy has big plays, and I'm sure off a bye week they're going to try to get him the ball more. But most of his receptions and targets in general are just where he's running underneath open, or he's running off play action out of the backfield. They try to hit him deep, but that's not really how he won in college, and that's showing up too in the NFL. So it is a matchup where it plays into the hands of the 49ers. They run a ton of tight end sets, a heavy personnel, and that's between the numbers is not how you beat the 49ers. If you think back to the Vikings, they hit explosive plays down the field. The Rams, they did the same thing. The Cardinals did as well. That's not what Mahomes does. For whatever reason this year, we know why. They don't have the weapons, but they just don't stretch the ball down the field. It sounds so crazy to say this, but the way we talked about Jacoby Brissett and where he throws the ball, in a lot of the same sense is Mahomes. The difference, obviously, Mahomes, once he gets out of structure, that's when he turns into Superman, and that's just not what you want.
Yeah, and we know that Fred Warner is the ruler of the middle of the field. He will be there. He's been great this season. But who is also around that area is Devondre Campbell. And what I worry about in this other not so favorable matchup is the Chiefs are going to probably look for that matchup for Travis Kelce going up against Devondre Campbell, keep him away from Fred Warner, right? And I think they'll have success with that. And yes, Kelce, if anyone who has Kelce on a fantasy team this season knows he started the season off terribly, right? Weeks 1 through 3 targets, 4 in week 1, 3 in week 2 and 6 in week 3, receiving yards 34, 5, and 30 respectively. Then in week 4, it seemed like they've made a concerted effort to involve him a little bit more, and obviously it's worked out for them. 7 targets in week 4, 9 in week 5, receiving yards 89 and 70 respectively. So it's a huge jump, and like you mentioned, after the bye week, just knowing where they are with their receiving core, I think they're going to emphasize getting Kelce the ball even more. And this matchup terrifies me because I think if they're going to have this matchup, they're going to eat all day if they want to. So I hope, Sorensen is ready to make some changes on this front, because I don't know if I believe that Campbell's going to be able to hold up here.
Yeah, I tweeted this out earlier. His coverage stats are just not great this season. He's actually among the worst linebackers in the NFL in like several categories in coverage. He's been targeted 28 times. He's allowed 25 receptions for 249 yards, 117.4 passer rating. Like, he's generating plus 9.4 EPA, which, like, he's taking points off the board, and he's not close when he's targeted too. So he has an average separation of 4.5. So if I'm Nick Sorensen, and I know he has to say the right thing when he's asked at the podium, but like, in my mind, it's a no-brainer. If you watch D Winners, like, he is not even allowing targets. Like, that's the big difference. When you are giving up that many targets, which I believe Campbell's allowed the 4th most targets, that means, like, you're not in position to make a play. If you play the faster player, the player who's literally comfortable covering people, should be a no-brainer. But I think it still boggles my mind that they're playing a linebacker who did not play on passing downs in Green Bay when they didn't have any linebackers to begin with. And the 49ers do have that. And more importantly, like, they have depth in the secondary. So I know the Chiefs are going to run a lot of heavy personnel, but I would, zigzag. And I would put Lenore on Kelce. And I would let Warner patrol the middle of the field. So put Lenore on Kelce, have Mooney on the outside, have Isaac Yiadom or Renato Green, whoever's going to play. I'm sure they're going to rotate. But I would leave Lenore on Kelce, and like, I'm rolling with that, because the way that Lenore's competed this year, he's been one of their best cornerbacks. Like, if I'm going to go down swinging, it's going to be with one of my best players. I am not going to let their best player beat my weakest link. So the best way to do that, and obviously Sorensen's found ways to blitz Campbell, like, to basically take him out of the equation. But first third down of the game last week, DK Metcalf runs right by Campbell, and it's an explosive play. And now the 49ers are behind the 8 ball. Thankfully, they had a turnover, but like, these are not things that you should even have to deal with. And the one way to do that is just by taking them off the field.
Yeah, and I do think that Sorensen is at the point, while he tries to be nice at the podium, speaking of Campbell, I still think that he knows he is the weak link. He knows that teams are targeting him. So, and yeah, he did mention they're going to have Warner on Kelce as much as possible. That sounds like a good plan. I just worry about the times where Andy Reid, who we know is the best offensive mind in the league, is going to force that matchup some way, somehow. It's going to happen at some point. So there's
ways to manipulate it, and that's what defenses are doing. So if you put 3 wide receivers to one side, Fred's going to go to the side with the 3 wide receivers. So you can isolate Campbell with a running back with the isolated tight end on the other side, and that's what teams are doing.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, at this point, it's not even just Kelce versus Campbell. Anyone against Campbell concerns me. So I do hope that we see more D Winters. I think he has better athleticism at this point to, stay with some of these guys. So hopefully this is the game where we start to see that shift a little bit more. But let's look at some of the favorable matchups now for the 49ers. And I'm going to go with 49ers run defense, right? This seems a little counterintuitive, but I think the 49ers run defense is heading in the right direction. And the Chiefs rank 9th in rushing attempts per game, 16th in rushing yards per game. So that shows that they're not as efficient, right? Through 2 games with Kansas City, Kareem Hunt is averaging just 4.2 yards per carry. And what I was most pleased with, I know the Seahawks don't run a lot, so I didn't look to their rushing yards, what the 49ers allowed to them. I looked at the efficiency. So Seahawks averaged just 2.6 yards per carry in week 6 against the Niners. And I think they looked good. Like they looked way more on it when it came to tackling in the run game, and Nick Bosa was doing a great job as well. So I feel like it's heading in the right direction, and I feel like if the 49ers can stop the Chiefs run game as ineffective or effective as it has been, I think that's a good key to this game.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. Like they have to win on early downs. And that's actually been one of the strengths of the 49ers defense this season is like limited or forcing teams into these 3rd and 7s, 3rd and 8. So they've been very good on early downs. And I think with how the Chiefs are playing teams, with like understanding that they're going to play a lot of tight ends, trying to run straight at the 49ers, trying to basically go macho man on man, like that's not how you're going to beat them. Like they are tough, they are physical, and they are aggressive too. So running right at Bosa team. Seattle, for whatever reason, kept trying to run at Bosa, and like he would just whoop the right tackle and make the player force the running back to redirect. So hopefully the Chiefs think that they can run at Bosa because that is such a failing proposition. But on the other side, Floyd's gotten a lot better. I think Malik Collins has done a great job. Honestly, getting Jordan Elliott back will be good or will be big for them. But the undrafted rookie, Evan Anderson, like he played very well last week. And I know he only played, he's only played like 30 snaps all season, but he's earned himself more playing time. So like they're getting more and more depth, and the way that their DBs play the run helps a lot too. So I do think this is an area where, again, if the 49ers can just continue to do what they've done all season, they don't have to change anything. They'll be okay.
And Kevin Givens is questionable for this game. And if Jordan Elliott is back, that might, negate the need for Evan Anderson to come up from the practice squad. But if they decided to do that, I would not be mad at all because he's been so good. Like, I think it's a matter of time before, like, he's deserving of being on the 53 man. That's how good he's been. So, definitely like Evan Anderson and what he's been doing, like the trajectory of the 49ers run defense. And I feel good about them keeping Kareem Hunt ineffective in this game. Let's look at another favorable matchup here. Chiefs turnovers. Like it feels crazy to say this, right? But the Chiefs are at a point, Patrick Mahomes right now is at a point where he's prone to turnovers. The Chiefs rank 25th in giveaways per game. That is not good. They average 1.6 giveaways per game to opposing teams. 27th in turnover margin, so they're at negative 0.8, mostly because of the turnovers they've been having on offense. Patrick Mahomes has thrown second most interceptions. He's tied with a few quarterbacks there with 6. He's averaging 1.2 interceptions a game. I believe he's had at least one interception in every game so far this season. He's throwing a pick at the 3rd highest rate, 3.74%. His turnover-worthy rate is higher than Brock's. I mean, that's not surprising given some of these stats I'm throwing off here, but when you do the comparison, it's just kind of mind-blowing. And we know the 49ers have been forcing turnovers, so they forced at least one interception in 5 of their last 6 games. So to me, this is a great opportunity for the 49ers to play some keep away. Both teams are pretty good at time of possession, but if you can get that turnover, you have to make the most of it because it's not just about getting the turnover. It's about being able to capitalize on it too. And that's going to be the advantage for the 49ers in this game if they can do that.
Yeah, I think the big thing with the 49ers this week is to be able to limit yards after the catch, because I know it's really weird to talk about Patrick Mahomes in this light, but if they can just force him to do like everything that's on the screen, like when he is in a neutral or negative game script is when he presses and when he tries to do too much and when they don't have the weapons that they do, and assuming that Fred Warner or somebody competent is going to be guarding Travis Kelce, that's when Mahomes tries to do too much, and that's when he's prone to making mistakes. So I think just limiting all the after the catch stuff, making Worthy beat – it sounds so strange to say make a guy who ran a 4.2 beat you down the field, but that's exactly what they should do. Make him go over the top. Make the rookie prove that, hey, like he can win over the top. And even if he does it once, like make it prove that it's sustainable. I don't think that's going to be the case. So I think like on this side of the ball, it's where the 49ers would be able to really control the tempo of the game.
Yeah, for sure. And I know that the Chiefs defense. They're really good in the red zone. We've been talking about the 49ers offense struggling in the red zone. So it might be like an uphill battle if you get that turnover to punch in 7. But I guess, I don't know, figure out a way, or I'll take any points off of turnovers in this game, although field goals will kind of drive me nuts. Snoopy in the comments asks, what about forcing turnovers? Where do they rank? If you're asking about the 49ers rank 6th with 1.8 takeaways per game. Kansas City ranks 24. So they're 0.8 takeaways per game. So yeah, they're not forcing as many as the 49ers are right now, which is part of the reason that their turnover margin is in the negative and they're 27th. So again, just underlines the opportunity here for the 49ers. Let's look at another favorable here. This one might be my favorite. It also might be the most obvious, so I'm hoping that the Chiefs don't key in on him, but I think we know they're going to try. George Kittle against these Chiefs linebackers. Against tight ends, the Chiefs are allowing 7.4 catches per game, 81.8 receiving yards. That's the most of any team that they're allowing yards to. In week 1, Isaiah Likely blew up for 9 catches, 111 yards, 1 touchdown. Remember, that was a game that had us all scrambling for the waiver wire to get Isaiah Likely on our fantasy teams. He hasn't done too much since then. So take that as a sign that the Chiefs defense may be making tight ends look a little better than they are. Mike Gesicki in week 2 had 7 catches, 91 yards. Kyle Pitts in week 3, 2 catches, 59 yards. Juwan Johnson in week 5, 5 catches, 31 yards. So they've struggled against some good tight ends, right? Kittle's pretty good. So I think this is a smash spot for him against the Chiefs.
Their second level defenders are not very good in coverage. I think they are exceptional against the run, but when they have to cover, when they have to turn and run and guard somebody that's generally faster than them, they look slow. If you just look at some of the numbers, according to Next Gen Stats, Bolton, who I think is the guy that, again, if they're circling Wanya Morris on one side of the ball, they're circling Bolton on this side of the ball. So on the season, 13 receptions, 16 targets for 153 yards and 127 passer rating. Tranquil, the other linebacker who plays a ton, 15 receptions, 18 targets, 136 yards. Shamari Connor, who's their slot corner, 12 receptions on 16 targets for 117 yards. And then if you just look through the box scores, every tight end, you just showed it, most of the tight ends have these big plays against them. Eric All from the Bengals, he had a 19-yard gain where he just ran away from Bolton. Kittle is as athletic as all of these players, if not more athletic than them. I really think it's a game where I can't see a successful game plan where Kittle doesn't have at least 10 targets. He should be spam the ball, and there are so many different ways that they can get him the ball just by spreading the field. They started to do it in the red zone last week, which was nice. It's head scratching that it took so long to get there, but honestly, this should be a huge game for George Kittle. Bolton cannot run with him. Tranquil could not run with him. And Connor, even though he plays defensive back, he's not as fast as Kittle. Kittle is the type of guy who you don't understand how fast he is until he's on you, and by then it's too late. So I think this is a game where Purdy and Kittle just really go off. Again, I know you mentioned Gesicki. Gesicki had a 37-yarder on the very first play of the game. So you can get over on these guys and you can have explosive plays against the Chiefs. They're just stingy in the red zone.
Yeah, they're stingy in the red zone. That's where, the 49ers have been trying to use Kittle the most as of late. It's worked out for them. He has a score in 4 straight games. So I would expect that to continue. But I think, obviously, they'll want to involve him throughout this entire game, throughout the field as well, especially, like we mentioned, Juwan Jennings out for this one. So I think that amplifies a need for more Kittle involvement. And against 2 high safety looks, Kittle leads the 49ers with a 22.1% target share and 28.8% first read rate. And against man coverage, and the Chiefs run a bunch of that, in 2024, he has 14 catches, 114 receiving yards, 3 touchdowns. He's plus 4.1 receptions over expected, plus 12.1 receiving EPA. And look, I understand that Kittle in the Super Bowl didn't do a whole lot. He caught 2 passes for 4 yards against man coverage. And just altogether just wasn't the performance we were expecting. I'm going to chalk that up to him being not 100%. I mean, we know in hindsight now, watching the receiver series, that he wasn't himself and he was dealing with some injuries. So I would expect, yes, the Chiefs are going to want to key in on that matchup and really pay attention to where Kittle is on the field. But I think regardless, I still think this is a favorable matchup for the 49ers.
Yeah, and it's one that they have to win, right? Man coverage against the Chiefs last year in the Super Bowl was a struggle for them. And Brandon Ayuk is going to probably receive a lot of extra attention the same way that he's received extra attention in every other game. This is a great spot for Kittle, and it's probably also a very good spot for Ricky Pearsall because Juwan Jennings is not out. Jennings has been great against man coverage. He's actually surprisingly one of the better wide receivers last year in man coverage, but I think this is why they drafted Pearsall, right? So he's a guy who has a really good feel for soft spots in the zone, but he's fast enough to run away from you, and he's very good at the line of scrimmage. So if you can win early so you don't have to win late, that's the name of the game as a wide receiver, and like that's where Pearsall excels. Not to mention he can make contested catches. Like he has tremendous hands. You didn't really get to see a lot of it in training camp just because he wasn't out there. But in Florida, like he made so many contested catches. He made some very difficult catches where he had to contort his body, jump behind his head, whatever he needed to do. If the ball was coming his way and he was able to get his hands on the ball, he made the catch. So I think Pearsall is really going to make a difference for them on third downs and in the red zone. Last year at Florida, I believe 2/3 of his receptions resulted either in a first down or a touchdown. So like he should make a big impact. I know it's a lot to put on a rookie wide receiver, especially making his debut. But like if there was ever a nice landing spot and that's why they're playing him, right? Like they know he's not going to be going against L'Jarius Sneed because L'Jarius Sneed's not out there anymore. And there's a good chance that I forgot the top corner's name already. McDuffie is going to probably follow Ayuk, which means Jalen Watson, who's a 7th rounder, is either going to be on Pearsall or Debo. And if they're going to put Watson on Debo, that means Connor is going to be on Pearsall. And Connor is a former strong safety who cannot run. He's playing in the slot because they are very good against the run and they want to stop the run. But he is susceptible in man coverage, and they usually would play just like some kind of soft zone with Connor. And Pearsall will eat zones up all day. So it is a very good situation for Pearsall to be in this week.
Yeah, I think so. And I think a large part that, Pearsall was drafted was, like you mentioned, he could beat man. So definitely influenced, I think, by their last memories in the Super Bowl. But KP, before we head out of here, why don't you give me your score prediction? And I'll give you mine first. You guys might not like it, but I'm gonna keep it real because I think everyone's always like, oh, you're such a homer. You always pick the 49ers to win. Well, this is one where I'm going to keep the same energy that I do for my team and every other team, because usually when I see a team not be able to beat the 49ers, I don't predict for them to win. So I'm going to do the same thing here. I need to see the 49ers beat this Chiefs team before I could ever predict that the 49ers beat this team. They could do it. I mean, we spent this entire show talking about the favorable matchups, and, I truly believe that there's opportunity, right? But in the meantime, I'm not predicting a win for the 49ers. I'm going to go 27-24 Chiefs. KP, I read your preview for this week, and you said you expect it to be a low-scoring game. So I'm curious what you think.
I think the 49ers win 23-13. I don't think the Chiefs are very good on offense, and I think the 49ers are going to kind of expose that. I know they're coming off a bye, and I know all you hear is Andy Reid's this off a bye. Patrick Mahomes is this when he's an underdog. I think they're an underdog for a reason. I think, like, if you're thinking in terms of, like, Las Vegas and setting lines, like, hey, look, Patrick Mahomes is an underdog, come bet him. I actually don't think it's going to be as close as many people do. I know that's wild thinking of how these games have gone in the past. But, again, like, they just don't have the firepower. And if you watch the Chiefs, they probably should have lost to the Ravens in week 1. The next week, I forgot who they played in week 2, but, like, every week they've gone into the fourth quarter when it's been a one-score game. They probably should have lost to the Falcons in week 3 on Sunday Night Football, but the Falcons went for it for whatever reason with 7 minutes left twice in the red zone and came up empty against the Chargers, who are not a good team. They were banged up with no offensive tackles. It was 10-0 after the first quarter, and it ended up being 17-10, but the Chiefs really had to work for that 17. I don't think that they have the firepower to score against the 49ers, and I don't think they can slow down the 49ers passing game. I think this is going to be the second time Brock Purdy goes over 300. I don't think the Chiefs passing defense is as good as their numbers would suggest. I don't think they've been tested in the same ways that they should have. Again, like the scoreboard looks good at the end of the game, but during, like, if you just watch these games, like they should, there's a better chance that I would say the probability of the 49ers being 5-0 as opposed to the Chiefs being 5-0, like I would take the 49ers in that sense. So I think the 49ers win. I think they win convincingly. And I also think the spot is just so much more bigger, so much more important for them. And then, you get the Pearsall injection too. So that's going to really pump everybody up. I think the Chiefs don't really care about this game. And I think this is one of those, like, hey, you can look back and it was a turning point for the 49ers offense. Like, hey, why don't you let Brock Purdy throw it more like this, right? Like he's throwing 35 times a game. Look how successful you were. Why not throw the ball to George Kittle in the same way you were? So there are a lot of good matchups for the 49ers on both sides of the ball. And I think that'll play itself out.
Well, I sure hope so, KP. Like, don't get me wrong. I really hope the 49ers win this game. I think they could. Just that in good faith, I can't predict for them to win this one. But yeah, we will definitely be, on pins and needles watching this one, hoping it's a different outcome than all the others. In case you guys want to read more about this matchup, KP had a great preview on Niners Nation that he put out today. It's called 49ers Chiefs Preview. Can Fred Warner finally tackle the boogeyman? Yeah, the Chiefs really are the boogeyman for the Niners. So yeah, hopefully they do get it done. But appreciate all of you that tuned in to today's show. You guys kept the live chat popping. Really appreciate that. You guys are pumped up for this game. It seemed like the 49ers are super pumped up for this game. Like from the practice footage I saw today, it looked like there was a lot of great energy. Again, we talk about Ricky Pearsall returning. I think that is going to be a huge boost for this team, and he's going to be amped up, right? And so I think, yes, 49ers should take advantage of that and try to get them involved early if they can. So, yeah, looking forward to this game. It could exercise a lot of demons for the 49ers, but anyone that's going, definitely enjoy. But all right, make sure you guys like this video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Audio listeners, leave a rating, leave a review. But for now, folks, have a good rest of your Friday and weekend. Peace.